Wasn't an All-Ireland winning performance.
Probably should have won the game based on their second half performance.
Is it a step too far to say it was the performance so far of the World Cup? Maybe not.
OTB AM's performance rankings with Gillette.
I'm scratching my head. That performance was just lacked that intensity.
Oh, I don't know how this is going to go, Johnny. Give me an advanced preview. How are you going to perform in the performance rankings this week? Because I don't think you've actually done this bit before, have you?
The performance rankings?
Yeah.
I think I have, yeah.
There's a lot resting on your shoulders because it's easy to screw up. A lot of people have tried this and failed it.
I'd nod to Colm, who's come up with the rankings here, and I think it's very hard to disagree, Ger. I think we've
thrown Colm under the bus in case this is no good.
Yeah, well, I think there's a very obvious place to start, and that's Hawkeye, isn't it?
The red, yeah. So that's how they start. We start with the red, and then we go on to the amber, and then we go on to the green. And if anybody out there wants to have their viewpoint, we're on Instagram. Yeah, you're doing well so far.
Yeah, I was at Croke Park on Saturday, and I was relatively kind of well positioned to judge Shane Walsh's score, and was pretty confident that it had gone over. But immediately, after the referee went to Hawkeye, because you think, okay, that's fine. I obviously got that wrong. I wasn't 100% sure, and you move on. Then the stream of WhatsApp messages start coming through on the phone. And what Hawkeye was wrong. It was like, this was something that it was very hard to get your head around. If Hawkeye is wrong, can you trust anything anymore, really? I mean, this is Hawkeye. This is not only football, but hurling, like a little slither going over the bar.
And tennis.
And debating these tiny little nuances where you think the technology not only got it wrong, but got it so badly wrong, and possibly got it wrong for the glass point as well, it would seem.
Yeah.
So it was one of these incidents of where you're not shown certain replays at a game, and I remember Rory O'Connor bringing this up before, and it was about some game in Croker where sometimes you're better off being at home. And this instance, you were better off being home because we had no idea that this was going to be overturned and Galway were going to merge a point better off level, effectively, into the second half. And the PA guy at Croke Park has to give the announcement like, oh, by the way, it's actually 4 points apiece, not 4 points to 3. And the place kind of went wild. And it was a psychological boost for Galway. But I mean, for the technology itself and for the GA's relationship with it, where does it go from here? I mean, this is catastrophic, really. It was an All-Ireland semi-final.
Well, and then they didn't have it for
Didn't use it for yesterday.
And will they have it for the All-Ireland hurling final next week? I don't know. Like, it does reduce your level of confidence in
life.
Well, I'm not going that far. I'm not going that far.
I'm not sure I can trust anything anymore. Like,
I trust much more other parts of technology. Look, I don't know. I mean, we need it because the umpires tend, as a rule, not to be great. I think we can all agree on that. And
I think Hawkeye's been brilliant. Like, and I think it actually adds to the drama. It's so quick as well. And I'm a fan of Hawkeye, and I've sympathy for umpires. It's not always possible to know exactly whether the ball went over the bar or not.
Top of the morning to you. Flack Hawk down is the headline. Hawkeye fiasco fury. Former GA president Sean Kelly wants payment stopped to Hawkeye operators after the Croker fiasco. Don't pay them if the service isn't working. Somebody said, I don't know, it's a significant amount of money per game. And obviously it costs a huge amount of money to set up the facility. And that's why we don't have it in every ground. But, like, if it's not going to work.
What happened? I mean, how did it malfunction to the extent that, like, it was so clearly wrong?
Like, it just made shit up.
Can you ever trust it again?
The robots are taking over and they're just making shit up. It's like, oh no, that point, no good. Oh no, wait,
the US election was rigged. I don't know.
It was totally. I mean, look.
But if it had been a close game, I mean, we could have had this horrible situation of having to go to a replay or something like that because of Hawkeye. But it was very strange, and it was
$8,000 a game.
$8,000 a game. That's whatever. I don't think that's much money to the GA. But where does the technology? Can you ever trust it again? Really, people will always be questioning Hawkeye now and going to the CCCC, bringing Hawkeye into disrepute. And as Porrick Joyce said, maybe it is human after all.
Well, or not, it just doesn't really make any sense.
What happened? I mean, we do need a serious inquiry here. But if this had happened in the 73rd minute, Derry go celebrating possibly, their first victory in a long time into an All-Ireland final or Galway, and it's like, no, Hawkeye got it wrong. What do we do?
Well, were there loads of points in the Dublin Kerry game that weren't points? Like, There might have been.
There were definitely a couple that I thought were. I think James McCarthy had one score that to me looked at least questionable, and who knows? It was a 1 point game.
Yeah. At the end, there certainly people were thinking, because it looked a bit wide. But
and I'm not picking sides here, but I'd say there probably were one or two. Like, it's very hard for an umpire. It's quite. I've always thought umpires are among the most underused kind of officials in sport, because they're generally kind of mates of the referee or whatever, and they do the job, but they're not spotting stuff that they could necessarily.
No, and sometimes their positioning is terrible.
Sometimes their positioning is terrible, but sometimes, like, when you look up and the ball's gone over the bar and it's pretty much gone over, and then you have the Dublin goalie like shaking the stick as well. I mean, it's not necessarily the easiest job in the world.
No. All right. Hawkeye in the red.
Hawkeye's definitely in the red.
Okay, what's next?
Next is Derry and Dublin. Yeah, this is just to follow on from that. I mean, obviously this is a red in a kind of a we have to put something here type red, because Derry and Dublin. It's not like Dublin disgraced themselves, but Desi's tenure looks. What happens from here? Because it was a disappointing here at the championship. Derry, I thought Derry, brought football itself into disrepute at times on Saturday. It's hard to watch a game like that, even as a Galway fan, having been at Croke Park for the hurling a week before.
I don't know.
Well,
it's not Derry's job to entertain you, especially you, the Galway fans.
No, it's not. But people wouldn't.
They should be annoying you. Like it's not this. The custodians of the game. This is the beautiful game is being ruined by these people. It's like no.
But
Derry's job is to gouge their way to a victory in that match.
Derry's job is to get more than like 6 points in 70 minutes.
They did fail. They failed at that.
So they did they failed. I don't think they had the footballers, to be fair. But what you have now at a football game, even at an All Ireland semi-final, is that people spend much of the actual game chatting. They literally just talk, and they're like, what's the crack? Where are you going after the match? Because the ball has just gone over and back. There was a score even yesterday in the game that I think Ger Canning extolled the score. What a score after a build-up of 3 minutes and change. I'm not sure people really want to watch that. So I think I often watch football now, and I do wonder, should there be like a time clock on how long you have the ball? And I know like that they're encouraging to kick the ball with the mark and all that, but Derry, the first half was horrible to watch, and Galway were in stuck. I mean, they'd 1 point after half an hour.
Yeah.
But eventually, obviously, I think in fairness, eventually the better team won. But like Derry fans, I think, were pretty demoralised with the whole occasion from the second half onwards.
I think Derry were a bit like Clare and just didn't show up, didn't do what they were supposed to do, didn't do what they were capable of, and it seemed a little bit like the occasion got to them.
Possibly. I think their game plan was good for the first sort of half hour, and there was a lot of schadenfreude in the audience when the policy of bringing the goalkeeper out went against them so badly in the second half.
Yeah, spectacularly so. What a finish by Comer. And so you must be feeling pretty confident about victory over Kerry in the final.
I think the odds are crazy. Like, I think we're the 4 point spread the bookmakers have given. I think we're 100 to 30 outsiders. I don't see it as that. I've been very impressed with Galway. I think Kerry sort of fell apart a bit in the second half yesterday. Let's remember they were 5 points up, missed a penalty, but they were kind of out on their feet in the second half. It was a hot day at Croker. What are they? 5 individual scorers. Galway, like, neither Finnerty nor Walsh scored from play on Saturday, and will both play better in the final. I'm very, very confident Galway will give them a good game, a very good game actually.
All right, and will the Galway fans travel in numbers?
Well, I mean,
not a huge football county.
Well, like, it's a sign of how much of a basket case Dublin is at the moment, that it's like they were nowhere near filling the ground yesterday for Dublin and Kerry.
Yeah, they weren't. I think the Dubs showed up in massive numbers. Like, I think a lot of Dublin fans realised that was an All-Ireland final for them, and the hill was full. I don't think there were that many Kerry people at the game yesterday.
They seem to make a good bit of noise, but I would implore people who have friends from Kerry or Galway coming up potentially for the final to offer them a bed, because Dublin is insane at the moment, and some people just cannot afford it, which is a bit sad for an All-Ireland final.
Johnny has many beds, and he's just offered them to any of the Galway people coming up. I presume you're not putting any Kerry people up.
Absolutely. Eoin Sheahan,
he'll do
at a gig with him Friday night. We all knew this was going to happen, and I did call it last week. I said it's going to be a Galway-Kerry final.
There you go. All right. So we'll talk more about Dublin being in the red with Anthony Moyles in about 25 minutes' time. But for now, we're moving on to the amber.
This is where the buoy comes in.
Morning, guys.
Colin, how are you?
I was waiting for the Johnny introduction there, but
Yeah, you got it.
well, while this was happening, the Dublin-Kerry fun was happening. It was actually such poor timing from a sporting context as that we went to a tie break, and the fourth set was injury time in Dublin-Kerry.
Right.
And I saw Dublin equalise, and I was like, okay, I'm going to play my cards here. That's going to go to extra time. I can comfortably watch the tie break here. Watch the tie break. Djokovic won his 21st Grand Slam, flicked back over, and Kerry were going mad celebrating.
Could you not have pressed record on one of them and then?
No, because then if you press record, it records the whole thing.
Yeah,
and then
but you can take it at the start of the recording, which would have been when it was level in the Kerry.
No, it's not the same. I mean, if you miss it live, you've just missed it with a moment like that. And also, I knew I had the highlights to fall back on. I just couldn't believe I missed that moment live, and then to watch it back, what I actually missed. But the tennis was worth it for missing, because it was exceptional. I'll give you one stat, lads. I'm going to take you back to the Australian Open in 2010 when Roger Federer beat Andy Murray. And when he did that, he had 16 Grand Slams. And on the same day, Djokovic had 1. And for the first time ever, Djokovic has gone ahead in Federer in the Grand Slam race. He has 21 Grand Slams to Federer's 20. Nadal is ahead with 22. And of course, the fascinating element of this, if it wasn't already interesting, is that Djokovic probably won't play a Grand Slam again until the French Open next year, because at the time of speaking, he won't be allowed to play at the US Open because of the vaccination stance. And he's technically deported from Australia for the next 3 years unless they change their tune there. So it could be the French Open next year again before Djokovic plays. But he's one behind Federer now in the all-time record for Wimbledon titles. He's levelled Pete Sampras on 7. It's 4 in a row for Djokovic. But it was a really good game.
2 anti-heroes, kind of.
Yeah, it was like the biggest anti-establishment Wimbledon final since Goran Ivanisevic against Pat Rafter in 2001. And Ivanisevic, of course, is Djokovic's coach now. But I thought Kyrgios did extremely well. I was speaking to our resident tennis fan here from America, Eoin, who thought the same too, was that he really put it up to Djokovic in the first set. And I was thinking to myself, if Kyrgios could play like this with the focus and attitude that he has in this first set, he'd be the best player in the world. Can't touch him. His serving is exceptional. He was serving 81% in the first serve. Djokovic couldn't handle him. But it's not just that. When the ball was in play, he was able to hang with Djokovic, basically. He was able to rally with him, no problem. The backhand is exceptional from Kyrgios. He hits loads of forehand winners. But what happened was Djokovic lost that first set 6-4. Didn't bother him. Did not bother him. He
dropped loads of sets.
Loads of sets. He's dropped the last 3 matches. He's dropped the first set, but in his last 4 Slam finals, he lost the first set, and he's won. And I think he's won 12 of the last 14 matches at Grand Slams where he's lost the first set. So if it's not already difficult and intimidating enough to play Djokovic, imagine the feeling of giving it your all, playing your best tennis in the first set, winning that first set, and ultimately realising that the match just started now, because Djokovic, he doesn't care that he's lost that. And Kyrgios said it in his press conference afterwards that he was asked, like, what's the difference with Djokovic, you know? And he was like, well, it's not so much his game. He's like, Federer used to embarrass you. He'd make you feel bad. Djokovic allows you to hang with him. So does Nadal. But he said what Djokovic has is composure. You can't rattle him. You can go 2 sets up against Djokovic, which Stefanos Tsitsipas did in the 2021 French Open final. And Djokovic won the next 3 sets comfortably. You cannot do it. The only guy who was able to do it to him was Daniil Medvedev in last year's US Open final, where he won 4-4-4 when Djokovic was going for the calendar slam. He was the only guy who could do it to him. And Djokovic that night admitted that the pressure got to him. But against Kyrgios, he just hung with them from the second set onwards. But there was a crucial point, lads, that 1-all, 30-all on Djokovic's serve at the start of the second set. There was a long rally. Had Kyrgios won that, he would have set up break point, and then he could have potentially gone 2 sets up. But Djokovic held in that game and then broke him to love in the next game. And as soon as that happened, you're like, bear in mind, we're only halfway through the second set. Kyrgios is a set up, and the feeling was Djokovic has won this match.
Yeah, it's mad.
That's how crazy it is. And then the real defining point was 4-all in the third set, 1 set all. Kyrgios is 40-love up on his own serve and loses the next 6 points. And that's when he starts turning on his box. And I mean properly turning on them. Up to the point where the last point of the game, he's still shaking his head at the box. Because I would have thought, well, at the end of your tournament now, you can put all that aside and be like, thank you so much, box, for this great support for the last 2 weeks. But he actually didn't reference them in the on-court post-match interview. You know, he talked about them, but he didn't congratulate them or thank them for all their support. But I'm sure they're a very tight-knit bunch. There's no coaches there. They're all friends. Girlfriend there as well.
It's good to, like, Van Aert in the cycling is kind of making up the rules as he's going along in this tour, and it's brilliant to watch. Even though he's not likely to win it, he's doing stuff that just looks mad, and it's great to have that element of just like the quirks of the human being involved, like, because it makes it interesting. Like.
Yeah, well,
And human frailties as well in his case.
Definitely, and I think look, tennis needs like to get the casual observer more interested. It can be a pretty alienating sport. It can be dull to watch if you're not invested in the players. Like, you really have to get invested in the personalities.
What about the Russian winner though, who's abandoned Russia for Kazakhstan?
Yeah,
like,
well, I mean, look. Born and raised in Moscow, switched to Kazakhstan in 2018 because Kazakhstan backed her career financially. That's why she went. It was for those reasons. And she was asked about that afterwards, and she did quite well. She was kind of like, you know, what you want me to say? Like, but it wasn't anything political on her part. She did this, you know, before the war started. This was a purely private, professional decision to further her career because the Russian Federation weren't backing her as a tennis player, and Kazakhstan were, and that was the decision made. I think Bublik did the same thing on the men's side. So it was a remarkable statistic to read because the hoopla before this year's Wimbledon was no Russians or Belarusians allowed. So you have, in that case, the world number one, Daniil Medvedev, was sitting on his couch yesterday watching the Wimbledon final because he wasn't allowed to play, and yet the women's winner, born and raised in Moscow.
Mad stuff.
Yeah. We should mention Nick Kyrgios has an outstanding issue in Australia where he has been accused of assaulting an ex-girlfriend.
Ex-girlfriend last December, yeah.
This is important that this gets mentioned now every time he comes up, because we would do the same with any of the other people. And you know, well, everybody is entitled to the presumption of innocence until otherwise. But
yeah, he's due in court in Canberra on the 2nd of August. And depending on the result of that, you know, he might not play the US Open. You know, they might take away his passport as part of the bail terms. But we don't know. Like, this pure speculation at this point. As you say, he's currently innocent. He's, you know, defended himself and legally. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, it's very important to note that, because it is easy to get carried away in the entertainment value. Yeah. But this is an ongoing story that broke last Tuesday, I think, in the middle of Wimbledon. And so it really is important to mention that as well, especially people who might not know about it, like that there is a court case coming up in his native Canberra on the 2nd of August. The
English tabloids are having a great time because some of the royals and one of the kids, I don't know any of the names.
Yeah, George, you know the names. You know the names. That's very curious of you to not know the names. I think you know the names.
Swear to the throne. This is it here.
There he is, yeah. For people who can see.
The new Nasty Nick. Nasty Nick turns air blue during Wimbo final. Air, H-E-I-R.
You know, it was like 35 degrees plus, and they made the poor young fellow wear a suit.
I mean, look.
Do you know what I mean? There was a great point where Kyrgios was lambasting his own box, using every swear word he could, and then you could see in the background all just watching that. He was like, he's going to take that away like that kid. He's going to remember that.
He was fined $4,000. He shouted up towards his girlfriend and sister, complaining about their apparent lack of support and saying, "Do you effing care at all?"
Yeah.
I mean, like...
yeah, and at that point you could see the William and the family behind.
It was 25 degrees in Ireland yesterday, and it felt like really warm. And I was like, it's 35 degrees in Wimbledon. Like, I was struggling to sleep last night in 25 degrees. It was like, how are they dealing with this in Spain?
It wasn't a bother to the two lads, but the spectators, it would have been like baking in the sun for 3 hours.
And then he also got a fan kicked out.
No, he tried to get a fan kicked out.
Was that the one?
I don't know if she was.
The one who was sledging and he
temporarily kicked
had
out.
a pop at her.
Yeah, so
he was talking. She was talking to him between points, and then he said to the umpire,
like she said 100 beers.
She said 700 beers, bro. And then it turned out one of the journalists did the research, and in the post-match press conference said it to him, was like, she actually only had 2 drinks and she was supporting you. And then he was like, so what? She was talking to me during the points.
Polish lawyer Ania Palos, 32, had 1 Pimm's and 1 rosé. It's the temperature for me. I had no hat. I'm really sorry. He always says the crowd is against him. I wanted to show we were for him. I wanted to encourage him. And Kyrgios to the umpire, why is she still here? She's drunk out of her mind and speaking to me in the middle of a game. He's like, you know, I mean, come on.
There was a protester as well who was removed, actually. And,
what was he or she protesting against?
I don't know what the protest was, because I think it was actually dealt with so quickly that the protester didn't get to send their message, which would be a disappointment for the protester. Afterwards, he was asked about that. Kyrgios too. It's like, did it distract you? And he said, I noticed it. But it didn't distract me. It's a key difference.
Probably one of them just stop oil lunatics.
I don't know what they were protesting.
Right. That's so Wimbledon in the.
It was a good Wimbledon, though, I have to say. I think people enjoyed it. I think the highlight for me was actually the Kyrgios Tsitsipas match, which was just great fun last Saturday night. That was amazing.
Yeah.
But on the women's side too, it was a really good final. Anders Jabeur was a set up, should have won that, but Rebecca is a kind of worthy winner, and unfortunately, the only thing she has to deal with now is the whole where she's from thing. But she was actually brilliant and a deserving winner, like,
and really happy to have won too. It seemed she didn't celebrate. There was no like.
Yeah,
she
but
was,
I don't. That's thrown on her a lot, but like that's ridiculous to throw that at her. Like,
we're policing her celebrations.
People react differently to things in life. Like, people are different, you know. Like, some people don't go mental. Djokovic didn't actually go that crazy yesterday, but no, she won and she like reacted like you win a first round match at Wimbledon. But people react. People are different. Like,
they are, yeah.
They are different. So is Hawkeye. Actually.
No rhythm.
Yeah.
Right.
That was it.
All right. Good
Enjoy,
stuff.
lads.
What's in our green? That's you.
So we're only at yellow here. Aren't
No,
we?
that was Wimbledon. We just did it. We're in green. Come on.
So is this, I can't. I'm having colour problems here. Galway and Kerry.
Yay.
What's after that then? What's the
Irish rugby?
the colour code? It looked green to me.
There, it is green. It's a traffic light system. It goes red, amber, green. That's it.
Galway and Kerry into the All Ireland final. I was minded to think back of 2001, when Pádraig Joyce scored, I think, 10 points against Meath. And lo and behold, he delivers us to the promised land for the first time 21 years later, when Galway apparently were going to dominate Gaelic football for years to come at that time, and haven't been to an All-Ireland final since, and didn't win a game in Croke Park for, I think, 16 years. And there was a lot of a feeling of pride in Croke Park on Saturday to see all these Galway jerseys. And I think Galway turned up in reasonable numbers. I mean, it's been a busy time if you're at the Armagh game, the Limerick game, then back up for the Derry game. And Pádraig Joyce to have led them, considering the legend that he was, a Gaelic footballer, and what a beautiful footballer, and to bring them back to a sort of more traditional style, married with the defensive style that the modern game necessitates, has been quite remarkable to watch. Probably haven't gotten a terribly bad draw. Like, got through Connacht, then Armagh and Derry. You wonder how strong Ulster football is at the moment. They avoided the big dogs, which has given them a realistic chance. Kerry are there. I think it was a performance you could pick some holes in yesterday. They kind of fell apart. I think physically they were shot in the second half, which is maybe understandable.
Owen Sheahan took today off for fear that the second half might happen yesterday the way it did. But I wish I could publish the stream of messages that were coming through, and you know how downcast they were as the Dublin comeback happened. But then they get out of jail and maybe they forget it all, and maybe that's all you need. Like,
yeah.
The one thing that did strike me about Galway were the first team to win through the back door. Are they going to be the first team to win, having come through a penalty shootout as well? It's right there for them. It's right there. We're going to talk more detail about this.
I think they've a very solid chance. I really do.
Right. Okay. So they're in the green. Who else in the green?
So Galway and Kerry, and then Irish Rugby, who I think there was a game on Saturday morning.
There was. We're going to talk about that right now. That is this week's Gillette Labs Performance Rankings. Alan Quillan standing by. We'll talk to him next.